Okay, so today we're going to talk about the universal law of cause and effect, which is very important in Buddhist studies. It's also important to understand very well before you actually go on to other sort of Buddhist studies or any kind of other studies that you're going to pursue. So let's start at the beginning and define what is the law of cause and effect, because if you don't really know that, then you can't really proceed anywhere. So let's talk about what it is first of all, and it's very similar to what we're used to seeing in physics. So every action has a consequence, and there's no such action that doesn't have a consequence, because everything has a consequence. Everything has a starting point, everything has an ending point. And if the action doesn't have an immediate consequence, it might happen in a future lifetime. So basically, suppose a man murders somebody. Suppose a man murders somebody. Although he maybe might get away with it today, this action might have a consequence later on. So it might happen if he winds up in jail somehow, or if in a next lifetime, it might happen there too. So either way, there has to be some sort of consequence that goes along with the action. So if it doesn't happen in this lifetime, it might happen in another lifetime. You always reap what you sow. Okay, so more of the same. Pretty much, if you do something, you have to reap the consequences. That's the bottom line. And so moving along with this theory, you have to. It's very universal. It's very valid in anything that you do. It's pretty universally understood, both from a scientific point of view and from a non-scientific point of view too. Although some people might ignore it from time to time. So the law is valid throughout the 6 realms and the 10 directions, and there's nowhere that it's not valid. So 6 realms, meaning the 6 realms of existence, or 6 states of samsara, which are gods, demigods, humans, animals, ghosts, or hell. And so it's always valid. 10 directions: north, south, east, and west, the intermediary directions, and up towards the heavens and down towards the deepest depths of hell. So it's pretty much valid everywhere, and there's nowhere it's not valid. So it pretty much transcends all the realms, and all realms are bound by this. It's not related to the law of attraction. So I get this question sometimes, where the law of cause and effect is somehow related to the law of attraction. The law of attraction is basically about positive thinking, manipulating yourself to believe something is possible, or sort of attracting things by positive energy, or sort of positive thinking, is what normally is called. Now, it's important to note that it's not actually the law of cause and effect, and Buddhism in general is not related to the way that the law of attraction is really represented in modern society today. If you take a look at the law of attraction, it's really more or less represented as get anything you want: money, fame, fortune, if you manipulate yourself or manipulate your thoughts to coincide with that. So we're not talking about that. Buddhism really doesn't have a basis for that kind of thinking. Yeah, it does to some extent. So if you're talking about the law of attraction, you're talking about thinking positively in order to achieve some form of material wealth or fame. Yeah, it's possible. And this is really self-power, though, you're talking about. When you're dealing with those kinds of things, you're talking about self-power, because in the realm of Buddhism, other power faith has really nothing to do with achieving any intermediary goals. Moving from point A to point B has nothing really to do with attaining material wealth. So the law of attraction really has no basis in Buddhism. I mean, it's somewhat the basis. The law of cause and effect is somewhat the basis of the law of attraction, but they're two totally different things. And the law of attraction, to me anyway, has really no grounding in Buddhist studies, although some people think it does, and there's a lack of evidence, of course, but they just claim that it has some sort of connection to Buddhism, but it really doesn't, I think, because that's not really what Buddhism teaches at all. In my studies, I have never found it to teach something like that. It's totally off base, and it's not even remotely related, I think. And this law of cause and effect is something that's very critical, as I've mentioned before. It's a very critical and core concept that has to be understood before anything else happens. So before you understand everything, it's like, for example, if you're a baby, you're learning how to walk, you're learning how to talk, right? Well, you have to learn all those things before you communicate with the outside world, right? If you can't walk, you can't go outside, and you can't communicate with the outside world. If you can't talk, obviously you can't have a conversation with anybody. So these are like fundamental things that have to be learned in order. So you have to learn about this first, and then that might lead you to other critical studies, because you have to have the foundational thinking first, and then you can break down the more complicated concepts. Okay, so now let's get into some examples about this, and one of the first examples that comes to mind is a Pure Land Sutra, the Contemplation Sutra, the story of Prince Ajase, or Ajatasattu if you're reading the Sanskrit version, Queen Vaidehi. Basically, this is a story of the Osha Castle tragedy, in which Prince Ajase was born. He was born to Queen Vaidehi and King Bimbisara, and basically what ended up happening was that the queen and the king couldn't conceive, and so what they ended up doing was they went to a fortune teller, and the fortune teller told them that they wouldn't be able to conceive, or they would be able to, but not in the present. They would have to wait 5 years or so till someone died, to somebody in the mountains who would die and then be reborn as their prince, some ascetic in the mountains. And so what they ended up doing was they ended up actually going to the mountains, taking a small army, and they ended up killing this ascetic priest. It wasn't really a priest, but he was an ascetic practicer, and they ended up having their son, their heir to the throne, which is Prince Ajase. And what ended up happening after that was Ajase actually ended up turning bad. He ended up turning evil, and the king and the queen were wondering why this is, or why this happened to them. They raised their child with nothing but love, but yet the prince turned out to be evil and do bad things. He even imprisoned and killed his father, the king, and imprisoned Queen Vaidehi also. So it's all related to the law of cause and effect, and that the law of cause and effect is what caused all this. So because they killed somebody, they killed the ascetic in the present lifetime. Yeah, once they conceived the child was conceived with hatred, and so that's why they have to reap what they sowed over there back then. Okay. There's also another story, the story of the Buddhist and the river of water. This is probably something we can all relate to. There's a short story about a Buddhist guy who actually was walking one day, and he came upon a river, and the river was blocked by a stone, and the water was flowing in the direction of the other village. And so instead of actually removing the stone and taking all the water for himself, he actually contemplated this, and he thought, in a past lifetime, we of the village must have blocked somebody else's water source. And so after contemplating that, he went home. He didn't unblock the water. He just left it as it was. And sure enough, after that event, everything seemed to go well for him. Their village's water was never blocked, and so that's also one short story that attributes to. That's an example of the law of cause and effect. And we can think of several more examples in our own life. And so all we have to do is really contemplate what the source of the action was, what the actual destination was, source and destination, what actually happened, what happened when we actually did that sort of action. What's the action that we committed? What's the action that we perpetrated, and what's the action that we received after that? So we have to contemplate those two things. So everything has a cause and effect, even our own birth and death in this world. So when we're born, that also is a cause. When we die, that's an effect of something else. Okay, birth and death are all part of the law of cause and effect, and the conditions that we face in this world are also based on the law of cause and effect. So so the conditions that we face every day, whether we're in poverty, whether we live a rich and happy life, all these sorts of conditions, and our intermediary steps are also based on the law of cause and effect. Okay, and so we have to think: why were we born as humans? Why were we born in the USA? Why as a white? Why as black? And so these sort of questions are really answered by the law of cause and effect. The answer is because in a previous lifetime. The answer is in the previous lifetime. Those conditions caused us to be reborn in this world in a certain location, to a certain parent, to a certain life, as a certain color, as a certain sort of nationality. So it's all determined by the law of cause and effect. So our birth was the result of our birth was a consequence of the causes which appeared in the past life. Okay, and what happens is the karma of the past combines with the present conditions to form the present. So in the case of our birth, we have it that parents get together. Yes. Okay, parents conceive the child. Yes. That's only the condition. The cause of this, the cause of what comes to be is related in the past. Okay, and so this past karma has an effect on the present time. It's really a valid explanation if you think about it in context, because if you have brothers and sisters, for example, all brothers and all sisters could be alike. They could be alike, but most of the time they're not. I mean, most of the time, brothers are nothing like their sisters, or brothers are not like their other brothers, or sisters are not like their other sisters. So this case holds valid. That's an explanation for that. It's an explanation of why some people are born in the United States, some people are born in Europe, some people are born in Canada, all these different countries. And so that's really what is the conditions of the past combining with the conditions of the present to form the future, or your birth, and then moving from there on. Okay? And there is a definitive past life everyone has experienced, okay? When Sakyamuni Buddha attained enlightenment on this earth planet, it's said that he gained knowledge about the past lives he had lived. And this is very widely known. And so Sakyamuni Buddha himself actually had knowledge of his past lives when he attained enlightenment of the 52nd level of Buddhahood. And so that's pretty well known. And so it's a general consensus that this law also holds true, although not everybody is going to attain enlightenment in this lifetime. There's no real guarantee that we will have knowledge of our past lives, but it's a certainty that the past life does exist. Okay, it's a definite certainty that it does exist, and there is a basis for it in Buddhism in particular. So the doctrine says it does exist, and so there's a valid basis for it. Okay, it's a very fundamental basis, and so judging by that, that's really what we have to go by. Okay, and that's it pretty much. That's pretty much the law of cause and effect. There are more examples that you can think of, but this is really the core basis of it.